Good evening, everyone. Our today's speaker is Dr. Ashutosh Kumar. He has done his PhD in environmental engineering from Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Currently doing his postdoctoral studies from Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, Hong Kong. So, in addition to that, am I audible, everyone? Hello, am I audible? Uh, Dr. Ashutosh, am I audible? Okay. In addition to that, he is also the recipient of Hong Kong PhD Fellowship Scheme Award. And briefly, his research area includes the advanced oxidation processes, environmental technology, photocatalysis, waste to energy, and water and wastewater treatment. In his research and academic career, he has published various research articles in the internationally reputed nanotechnology, energy, and environmental journals, and having over 250 citations over Google Scholar. So I would like to invite him for a talk now. Dr. Ashutosh, you can speak now. Dr. Ashutosh. Hello, Dr. Ashutosh, are you there?
Hello.
Hello, Dr.
Hi,
Ashutosh.
Shal.
Yeah. Am I audible to you?
Yeah. Yes, you are audible. Actually, I had muted. So
Okay,
now it's
okay.
okay. So let me
Yeah,
start the talk.
yeah.
So good evening,
Dr.
everyone. This is Ashutosh from the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. So I would first of all would like to thank IEEE student chapter of the CSIR CSIO Chandigarh for inviting me for this lecture. And I would also like to thank the participant for showing interest in this talk. So today I am going to present my talk on the recent developments and challenges in practical application of visible light driven titanium dioxide based heterojunction structures for pharmaceutical and personal care product, that is PPCP degradation. So I will show a critical review in this aspect. So yeah, this is the outline of my presentation, where first of all, I will go through the background of this research. Thereafter, I will introduce about the conventional heterojunction photocatalyst. Thereafter, I will show how the recent developments in the titanium dioxide based heterojunction for the degradation of PPCP is happening in recent years. Thereafter, we will see the challenges in the practical application, and in the last, through the conclusions and prospects. So let's start with the background. So pharmaceuticals and personal care products. So the question is that what are the PPCPs and why we are targeting it? So PPCPs, by the name itself, it consists of two parts. One is the pharmaceuticals and another one is the personal care products. So pharmaceutical include all kind of antibiotics and medicine which we use in our day-to-day life, such as anti-epileptic drugs, anti-inflammatory drugs, etc. And personal care products like insect repellents, preservatives, synthetic mask, toothpaste, sunscreen, UV filter, etc. So now the question is why we are targeting it. So in fact, whenever we use these PPCPs, like suppose we took some medicine, suppose paracetamol. So most of the part will be excreted out of our body. Mostly, I guess around 80%. Only 20% either it will be absorbed or it will go through the degradation process. So thereafter, it will find the way to the sewer line, and thereafter it will go to the wastewater treatment plant. And in wastewater treatment plant, actually these pharmaceutical and personal care products are not degraded efficiently. Then thereafter, actually, either it will go through the animal and it will bioaccumulate in the plants. So depends on the diet of the human being, either he is vegetarian or non-vegetarian, it will pass through the human being. So then we will see the adverse effect like cancer risks, birth defects, genotoxicity, reproductive disorders, and neurobehavioral impairments. So that is why we want to develop the efficient technology we could efficiently degrade these PPCPs. So here is the basics of semiconductor photocatalysis and its drawbacks. So first of all, the PPCPs get adsorbed to the semiconductor material. So I guess there are various background of people in this talk. So that's why first of all, I am calling it semiconductor material. Basically, this semiconductor material is later we will call it photocatalyst because it also behave as a photocatalyst. So first of all, the PPCP need to get adsorbed on the semiconductor material surface, then it will go for the degradation. So after the adsorption, as we know in the semiconductor physics, I guess we all have studied, like whenever the energy irradiated, that is light here, is more than the band gap of semiconductor material, then electron will get excited from the valence band and it will go to the conduction band, and hole will remain in the valence band. So the conduction band electron will actually reduce the dissolved oxygen present in water, and it will form the superoxide radical. And similarly, hole will actually react with the water, and it will form the hydroxyl radical. And thereafter, electron holes and these reactive oxygen species together will degrade the pharmaceutical and personal care product into the carbon dioxide and water. However, we have some drawbacks, which is very basic drawbacks in the photocatalysis. One is the limited absorption of light spectrum. Suppose in the light spectrum, we have from UV to visible to the near infrared. So basically, most of the photocatalyst absorb work in the UV region, which is, I guess, 3 to 4% of the total solar radiation. So actually, we want to extend so that we could harness more of the solar energy. And another main problem is the recombination of these charge carriers, because whenever these charge carriers after the excitation, again they need to combine, and after this combination there will be dissipation of energy, and electron and holes will not be available for the uh, photocatalysis process. So that's why we actually want to extend the time of recombination. We do not want to recombine them earlier. So what is the need of heterojunction? Heterojunction is basically we are combining two of the semiconductor material. Here there is a SA, which is semiconductor A, and another is semiconductor B. So we will hybridize it. So basically it is kind of two engine system. So what are the benefit of these heterojunction? So first one is that we can get the light absorption extended to the higher wavelength region. Suppose semiconductor A is only excited under the ultraviolet light, and the semiconductor V can get excited in the visible and infrared region. So what we can do that we can combine them, and we can make it a heterojunction, so that both can work together in the UV, visible and infrared region. So this is the one benefit. Another one is the enhanced separation of electron and hole pairs, which I will show you in the next slide. And another one is the enhanced photocatalysis process, because I told you it will work as a double engine system. But the question is, why titanium dioxide based heterojunction? Actually, the practical applicability of a heterojunction depends on the following, which is all in the titanium dioxide. One is the non-toxicity, which means it is relatively non-toxic if we compare to other semiconductors. Another is chemical and biological inertness, because we do not want a photocatalyst which will chemically react or biologically react in the aquatic environment, and we get another kind of environmental issue. And another is the excellent photochemical corrosion resistant ability. And most of the important, the titanium dioxide, due to its band structure, is able to generate the powerful hydroxyl radical, which is the dominant oxidant in the water and wastewater treatment. So this is the main thing for what we are looking for the titanium dioxide. And another important thing is the cost, because if we are going for the practical application, of course we do not need the costly material, because we want to minimize the cost, and the cost is around $1 per kg for titanium. And then we are going to discuss the conventional heterojunction photocatalyst. So based on the different band and electronic structures, typically heterojunctions can be of three types. So let us deal one by one. So first we will discuss about A, which is type 1 heterojunction, which is also called the straddling gap heterojunction. So here there is semiconductor A and semiconductor B. So the valence band of semiconductor B is higher than the valence band of semiconductor A, and conduction band is lower than the semiconductor A. So what happens, we can see like holes from a semiconductor A is going to the valence band of semiconductor B, and similarly the electrons coming downwards, which is a natural phenomena. It is just like we are throwing a stone from the hill and it is going downhill. So everyone want to go to the lower energy level, but the thing is that in this case we are actually dissipating the energy which we have achieved in semiconductor A. So the issue is that all the electrons and holes accumulate at one semiconductor, that is semiconductor B. So now we are going to the type 2 heterojunction, which is also called staggered gap heterojunction. So here the case is different than the type 1, where the valence band and conduction band both of semiconductor B is higher than the semiconductor A. Sorry. And then actually I have shown in the purple color the movement of electron, as I have shown in the picture A. So basically after migration of the charge, that is electron and holes, actually in this case the electron is suppose getting transferred to the semiconductor A and hole is getting transferred to the semiconductor B. It means that electron and holes are accumulated on two semiconductors, which means that migration is happening, which means low recombination and more separation. So oxidation and reduction process is happening on two semiconductors. So that is the benefit here if we compare to the type 1. But in case of type 3 heterojunction, which is also called the broken gap, broken gap by the region is that because band gap of both the semiconductor A and B is not overlapping. So it's kind of both of them are working independently. So there is no such kind of heterojunction structure in fact, but theoretically they have divided like that conventionally. So let's come to the recent developments. We will see what things had happened in the past 10 years. So for that, I have used the keywords like heterojunction, titanium dioxide, photocatalysis, and visible light to find out through the Scopus database how the publication people have published in the past 10 years. And we can see year by year it is increasing. So the conclusive point from this information is that I have actually figured it out that about 75% of this kind of research is going on the dyes only, dyes and pigment. But the problem is that dyes and pigments also interfere with the photocatalytic reaction because they are also part of the photosensitization process. So which means they interfere. It means that absolute photocatalytic efficiency we cannot measure. So I wanted to tell you that most of the research are actually based on dye, which we do not want because in fact we cannot measure how the absolute photo efficiency is happening here. So that's why the topic of this research is on pharmaceutical and personal care product, because after 74% rest is the PPCPs, which we wanted to focus. So here are the PPCPs on which actually people have worked in the past 10 years. So I have categorized into three groups. So one is the analgesic and anti-inflammatory drugs and antibiotics and anti-epileptic drugs. So we can see that most of the people from the literature that they focus on antibiotics mostly. And another drug which is in the bottom, carbamazepine, which is an anti-epileptic drug, it is kind of non-biodegradable almost, we can say, because it neither adsorbed in the wastewater treatment process, nor it is degraded. So this is the main issue among these PPCPs. So here is the non-conventional type of heterojunction. So there are three kinds, which I have figured it out from the literature. So one is the Z-scheme heterojunction, and second is the PN heterojunction, and another is the Schottky. So let's deal one by one. So in the next slide. So this is about the Z-scheme heterojunction. So here I have actually also put the type 2 heterojunction because most of the non-conventional heterojunctions are actually based on the process of type 2 heterojunction. I mean the advancement of type 2. So it would be easy for us to understand if we make the reference point of type 2 heterojunction. So we already know the charge carrier migration of type 2 heterojunction. So let's see what is happening in the Z-scheme heterojunction. So here in the type 2, basically the higher potential holes is getting transferred to the lower potential. And in case of electron from the semiconductor B, which is at the higher reduction potential, they are losing their energy and coming to the semiconductor A conduction band. So we do not want that because we are losing our energy. However, it is easy process as I have shown in the figures. Easy because everyone want to lose and energy and want to get it stable. So in Z-scheme heterojunction, the hard work is to maintain the higher potential of hole and higher potential of electron. Sorry. So for that, actually, we have to make that kind of interface between semiconductor A and semiconductor B so that the electron and hole, by their virtue of electronegative charge, like electron in the conduction band of semiconductor A and holes in the valence band of semiconductor B, get recombined at the surface, and it makes a Z scheme like Z like pathway. That's why it is called Z scheme. So there are two type of jet scheme heterojunction. One is like we do not put any electron mediator material. So it is only made up of two photocatalysts. Sometimes we actually in the middle of both semiconductor, we put some electron mediator material. And in that case, we make some interface. And there the jet scheme thing happens. So we can maintain the oxidation potential of hole and reduction potential of electron at semiconductor A and semiconductor B respectively. So here come the PN heterojunction, which is an advanced type of type 2 heterojunction. So what happened in the case of PN heterojunction? N-type heterojunction can contribute electron. So what N-type heterojunction is doing, the movement of electron is happening from N-type to P-type semiconductor surface. Then a vacant space, that is like a positive charge appear when they are losing the electron. And similarly in the P-type heterojunction, when holes are moving from P to N-type semiconductor, then a negative charge appears. And due to this charge potential created on the N-type and P-type semiconductor, actually there is a generation of internal electric field, and in that, due to that internal electric field, the migration of charge carrier happens hereafter, which means that charge carriers are migrated, and that is happening under the influence of electric field, which means the more separation of charge carrier is happening, and we can actually uh, having the low recombination. And similarly, in the N-type and P-type, the oxidation and reduction process is happening on as that of type 2 heterojunction. So here from the type 2 heterojunction, we have the advantage of having more separation of charge carrier. Another is the Schottky junction. Some people also call it Schottky barrier. So here actually instead of semiconductor we are having the metal or metal kind of semiconductor, which can act as a sink of electron of semiconductor B. So after movement of the electron on the metal surface, the hole will remain for the reaction, and hole will subsequently generate the powerful hydroxyl radical, which will continue the further reaction for the degradation. So these are the salient features. I have made a table from the literatures on the material involved, type of heterojunction, what kind of PPCPs they have targeted, and their physical property like BET surface area. So based on these tables, actually this is kind of conclusion of that table. So I have figured it out some common ground so that we could discuss, like the BET surface area, so which is one of the key factors for adsorption of the pollutant on the photocatalyst surface. For the TiO2, I can see from the literature like it varies from 10 to around 165 meters square per gram. So the heterojunction surface area can be improved either by morphology manipulation, which is by synthesizing nanosheets, nanobelts, or nanotube, or by actually increasing the surface area by combining with the high surface area semiconductors such as BiOBr and zinc oxide. So we have seen in the literature like bismuth oxybromide and zinc oxide of 160.8 and 165 meters square per gram respectively. So this is how we can increase the overall surface area of the heterojunction. And the reactive species, as I have also shown earlier during the basic photocatalysis process, there are four participants like electron, hole, superoxide, and hydroxyl radical. So most of the people have reported that hole, superoxide, and hydroxyl radical are the key reactive species. It means that electron either has no role or minimum role. So here I have made a table for the redox potential of various oxidants in the water under standard condition. And from the table, I have figured it out that hydroxyl radical is having the highest oxidation potential among all the radicals in the acidic condition, that is 2.8, and it is followed by the sulfate radical. So that is why we are looking for the hydroxyl radical. So from the literature, I have come up with a plan like how to further improve the efficiency of the titanium dioxide based heterojunction. So one of the strategy is the effect of various titanium dioxide facet on the photocatalytic degradation. And next one I will discuss in the subsequent slides. So first one, uh, actually titanium dioxide has actually three kind of facet, like 101, not one, and not one not facet. So we are actually going to measure like which facet is good for the photocatalytic process, and what do you mean by the photocatalysis? So here the photocatalysis means we are measuring the superoxide radical generation, we are measuring the generation of hydroxyl radical, and we are also measuring the separation of electron and hole pairs. So by combining this, we have made the photocatalytic order, which is showing that not one facet is the most photocatalytically active. Here we have not mentioned any pollutant, because if we use the pollutant, the photocatalytic degradation will vary. So it is same like dyes. We cannot come on the point like photocatalysis in absolute term. Okay. So then try to figure it out why this TiO2 facet of not one is performing better. So we also have the average surface energy order of these facets. And I have find it out like due to the presence of 100% five-fold coordinated titanium atoms present in the not one facet, and 50% in case of 101 facet. So I guess due to the 100% five-fold coordinated titanium atoms, the not one facet is performing well. So I guess in future, if you want to target some PPCP, not one facet could be the better idea. And here are some examples like Wang et al. In 2019, they have made a jet scheme heterojunction with not one facet with the n-doped carbon quantum dot. And another one is the Wang et al. 2016. They have made a type 2 heterojunction, four shell kind of structure, titanium dioxide at GC3 and 4. And similarly, the Sajad et al. And he has actually tried to degrade the carbamazepine, but the performance is not kind of very good because it's very difficult to degrade. And second strategy is the effect of bonding at the junction interface. So how we measure it? So I have categorized into two forms. One is the nature of contact interface, which can be uniform or non-uniform, strong or weak interface. And another is the bonding pattern, which could be physical or chemical bonding. So here we can see in the picture, like Chen et al., they have published in 2016, like they have made a type 2 heterojunction with TiO2 and graphitic carbon nitride. So what they have done, they have synthesized a mesoporous titanium dioxide, and as we can see in the figures, they have arranged the GC3N4 over it in a way that it could make a strong contact interface. So here are some other examples in this regard. So in this XPS analysis, I want to say that in the bottom, there are two figures, and on the top, there are two. So bottom figure belongs to the mixing sample. Here mixing sample means they have prepared the sample with the same proportion, but by just physical mixing, no close contact. Okay. And in the upper part, that is the main photocatalytic material, in the same proportion they have made it, but it is by different method, so that close contact can be created. And they have come to the conclusion that there is a bonding between carbon and titanium, nitrogen, and titanium of the GC3N4 and carbon doped titanium dioxide. So due to the presence of this strong bonding between graphitic carbon nitride and titanium dioxide, actually they are able to make a strong interface, which led to more photocatalytic efficiency. So here is another example of the TiO2 at graphitic carbon nitride. So here by this picture A and B, you can understand like Ln is loose and non-uniform, and Cu means compact and uniform. It also appears in the figure. And in the figure C, I have also mentioned their photocatalytic degradation efficiency for the tetracycline. So here again, they have made the mix sample, which means the physical mixing in the same proportion. And another sample, which is TCN, is the TiO2 at GC3 and 4 by their compact and uniform method. So again, here we can see that there is 36% increase in photocatalytic efficiency in case of figure B. So here I wanted to show that how the things are working in our favor. So let's come to the challenges in the practical application of titanium dioxide based heterojunctions for PPCP degradation. So one challenge is the cost. So cost can be controlled either by selecting the low cost material or by adopting low cost synthesis method or by recycling the material, which I am not going to deal here with. So here, please see the scenario one. In scenario one, what we are doing, like we are synthesizing the semiconductor A precursor and semiconductor B precursor, and then we are synthesizing the main semiconductor separately, and then we are again mixing it to form the heterojunction. However, in scenario two, you can see semiconductor B is introduced during the formation of semiconductor A, which means that we have saved one step. So by saving one step, we can reduce the chemical and energy cost involved in step two. So by using scenario two, actually I have synthesized, I have actually saved the cost, and this paper is published in Chemical Engineering Journal in 2018. And another point is the recycling, which consists of recovery, regeneration, and reuse. So here I will go through quickly, like there are two kind of process to separate in the lab. One is the centrifugation, another is the magnetic recovery. So in centrifugation, we can perform it in the lab by the mechanical process of centrifugation, but it will be expensive if we go for installing in the higher capacity. So it means not practically applicable. And similarly for the magnetic recovery process, if we go for the pilot scale, then we need to install large electromagnetic system. And here are the table of the recycling and use of various material. But you don't need to worry because I have already mentioned and explained in these slides. There are few points I'm going to deal with here. So another part is after the recovery, the regeneration of the photocatalyst, which can be regenerated by washing with deionized water or organic solvent or H2O2, or treatment with gas like ozone. So in practical application, treatment with hydrogen peroxide or ozone appears to be less feasible because of its cost. And the cost will also increase because the handling requires the skilled operator. So it is another problem. So from the table I have shown you in the previous slides, from that I have come to the conclusion that a mixture of DI water and ethanol or methanol come to the less decrement in photocatalytic efficiency after the regeneration, which means that this is the way forward. We can go with the low cost and better regeneration and reuse. And one is the stability of the photocatalyst. Sorry. So the stability in the literature can be measured in various ways, like chemical, photocatalytic, photoelectrochemical, or structure stability. So how we measure? So actually, what we do, we take the pristine catalyst and we recover the used catalyst, and then we compare to the SEM, TEM, or XRD, and then we prove that whether the catalyst is stable or not. And in the last part, there is another method like uh, they have used to compare by the time dependent fluorescent spectroscopy, and they have proved that gamma Fe2O3 and black titanium dioxide heterojunction is better than the alpha Fe2O3 and black titanium dioxide. So they are trying to prove their photocatalytic stability in terms of generation of hydroxyl radical. And last part is the evaluation of environmental effectiveness, which means like in lab, generally people do experiment, they mix the PPCP in the water and they claim that, okay, they have achieved this much degradation efficiency. But in fact, the real water matrix is different when you go for the real wastewater or surface water or wastewater sample. So there are few examples I have quoted here where people have done some excellent job, because at least they are targeting these PPCPs in real wastewater samples. So this is the way forward. But in conclusion of this slide, actually I want to say that the factors like humic acid and cations like iron, copper, and anions, phosphate present in the water matrix actually hamper the photocatalytic process. So the humic acid inhibit in two ways, like one by acting as an inner filter, like they make a barrier between photocatalyst and the light, so less absorption of light happens. And another by scavenging the reactive species like electron, hole, superoxide, or hydroxyl radical. So here comes the conclusion and future prospects of this research. So among the conventional heterojunction, the type 2 heterojunction is the most effective one due to its spatial migration of separation of electron and holes, and the oxidation and reduction process happening on the two semiconductor here. And among the non-conventional, the Schottky and Z scheme heterojunctions are the way forward, because here we can actually maintain the oxidation potential of hole on the surface where it is generated. It means no dissipation of energy is happening. So we can generate the hydroxyl radical. And for further improvement, the lesson to be learned is that we need to select the highly photocatalytic active, not one facet of NATS TiO2. And we have to select our method in a way that we can make a contact interface and strong bonding between the two semiconductor, and selecting the heterojunction component which can efficiently generate the hydroxyl radical, because it is a non-selective radical. It do not selectively attack on the PPCP. So it means it can tackle all kind of organic pollutant. So this is the way forward. And here the last part. So actually we have gone through the conventional heterojunction, non-conventional, and certain efficiency improvement strategies I have discussed for the visible light driven titanium dioxide heterojunctions. However, there are challenges in practical application, such as cost reduction, recycling, stability, and one thing is the byproduct analysis, because in some cases the byproducts are even harmful than the parent PPCPs, and environmental effectiveness, which I have discussed. And another part is the reactor design and scale up in this field needed to be work. So wherever, I guess, wherever from hereafter, if we want to develop a heterojunction, we should keep in mind these factors if we are looking for the practical application. So thank you, everyone. So this is the picture of the university where I work. And this is my profile. So basically, I work in three kind of field. So during my association with the IIT Roorkee, I work on the waste to energy conversion assessments, and I have published two papers. The first two papers belong to that field. Thereafter, one field is also the water quality assessment, and other papers belong to the photocatalysis and advanced oxidation process, where I have published in, I guess, most of the good environmental journals like Journal of Hazardous Material, Chemical Engineering, or Water Research, Applied Catalysis, B Environmental. So the paper is published based on this work, which is in Water Research, March 2020 issue. So here I end my talk. So let's go for the Q&A session.
Yeah, thank you, Ashutosh sir. I'm Anupama. I'm
Hi,
sorry I
Anupama.
couldn't join the initial part, but there are some questions in the chat box window, so I'll say it for you, and you can take up them. So the first
Okay.
question is from Dr. Neha. So she's saying
Okay.
that what is the role of solvent in photocatalytic degradation?
Solvent.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the role of solvent in photocatalytic degradation?
Oh, okay. I got her question. Actually, it is not solvent. She is asking about the regeneration process. Let me
Okay.
go to the slide so that
Yeah.
we can have proper. Mm, yeah, here. Actually, yeah, here I have mentioned in title number 2, the organic solvent. The role of solvent is that, like, whenever we go for the photocatalysis process, actually it also break the pollutant into some byproduct, like lower molecular chain of organic pollutant. So there are chances that after the first reaction, some of the byproduct can get attached to the surface of the photocatalyst. And in the second or third cycle, the photocatalytic degradation efficiency will decrease. So that is why they try to actually regenerate the photocatalyst by washing with the water or organic solvent. Why organic solvent? Because the organic solvent could mostly actually dissolve the byproduct. So the photocatalyst surface would be available for the next cycle. So this is the
Okay.
answer.
Yeah. So moving to our next question. Can we use TiO2 catalyst for coating on building for purification of air? If
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
what
they have
would
already. Yeah, they have already used. If you really want, if you are really interested in this kind of research, mostly Japanese researchers are excellent in that, and they have actually not only on the building, actually in the operation theater, on the tiles also they coat the TiO2 so that the bacteria could get deactivated when they enter into the room. And there is another application. They also make it. They also mix it with the looking glass, like looking mirror in the car or bike. And there is another application. Yeah, they also put in the sunscreen, which we use in day-to-day life to degrade the pollutant. So these are the other application other than this.
Okay. So moving to the next question from Deepak. What decides
Mhm.
whether the material will follow Z scheme or type 2 mechanism?
Okay, yeah, this is interesting question. Actually, you do
Yeah.
not know, but you need to prove by your analytical techniques and characterization techniques. So there is no way to actually measure this kind of things. So basically, you need to synthesize the photocatalyst and you need to check whether it is type 2 or Z scheme or PN junction or whatever it is. So basically, it's your method which drives the formation of heterojunction.
Okay. So moving to the next question from Abhishek. He's asking,
Okay.
can we change the nanomaterials from P to N type materials by changing their molar ratios?
I don't think so, because
Okay.
the actually it is due to the band position of the material. It's not due to the quantity of the material. So it's not possible.
Okay. So
Hello,
next
sir.
question
This is
from
Abhishek. Sorry for interruption. I want to ask, like,
Okay.
when yes, sir.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
want to ask, like, I read in a paper, like, there is a ternary chalconides material, like copper indium sulfate. In that paper, when
Okay.
he changed the ratio between copper and indium,
Okay.
the
Now,
type changes
now I
from
guess I
P1 to
got your
P2.
question. So
Yeah,
actually, you want to convert from N to P within same material, right?
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that can be done,
Okay.
because basically it is new material you are developing by changing the molar ratio. You are not comparing one material with another material. Like I
Yeah,
answered the first question, so this is a difference. So I guess
okay.
I satisfied you.
Yeah, I am. Yes, sir. So one
okay.
thing is that how
Next.
electric field affect the PN junction, like how the electron transfer, if there is interruption between the two type of semiconductor
Uh,
like
let, let
PNN,
me go
then
there so that we can do cross questioning there if you have more doubts. Yeah, yeah, here. What do you want to ask?
like how what is the process of change convert how the electrons move to the next conduction band of the other n type and p type heterojunctions.
So first of all, I'm not in the first instance, I'm not talking about valence or conduction band, because I guess you are aware about the n-type semiconductor. So it has tendency to
Yeah,
give
yes,
the
sir.
electron, right? So
Yeah.
it has tendency to give the electron. Then the electron will migrate towards the p-type semiconductor surface. I'm not saying the valence or conduction band, surface. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
some positive charge will be there on the n-type, and similarly on the p-type negative charge will there. And due to this, the charge migration will happen. And due to the change in the conduction band and valence band potential of the n-type, p-type, uh, because you already movement of charge is happening due to this difference. So some space is also vacant. So that space will be filled by the electrons in the conduction band of p-type, and then it is migrating from p-type to n-type. So it is kind of cycle, right?
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Anupma, is there any other question?
Yeah, sir. Going to the next question from Dr. Neha. So she wants to know,
Okay.
how do I calculate the quantum efficiency in a typical photocatalytic water splitting experiment?
Uh,
To
yeah, quantum
calculate
efficiency, I know, but what is the question? How to calculate, or do we need to calculate?
how to calculate quantum efficiency in a typical photocatalytic water
Okay,
splitting
got it, got
experiment.
it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So actually,
Okay.
there are two ways. One is the apparent quantum efficiency. You can calculate by how much photons you are injecting and what is the outcome of what is the outcome, like the photocatalytic efficiency. This is called the apparent quantum efficiency. And another one is like you should go to the QuantaCore. There is one instrument, and in that you should measure. So you can find the absolute quantum efficiency. And if I were you, I would prefer the absolute quantum efficiency, because in the apparent one you have many drawbacks, like when we inject the photons onto the surface, there are many factors which can affect the absorption. I mean, whatever photon you have given, you do not know whether it is materializing into the photocatalytic or water splitting process or not. So I guess measuring in the absolute term would be better.
So next question is from Shivanjali. How can we use photocatalyst for polluted water? Which system will you prefer for purification, continuous batch? Yeah. Yeah. How can we use catalyst for polluted water?
I got it. Actually, we do not use this kind of thing in totally polluted water. Like suppose in the wastewater treatment, like you have certain kind of either uh, ASP process or whatever process is that. So it is kind of polishing step, because you have actually removed all the most of the, not all the COD, BOD or ions, whatever it is possible. But there are certain amount which you cannot remove, and in that amount these PPCPs are also there, or there could be some dyes, but PPCPs are kind of mostly uh, not easily biodegradable or non-biodegradable. So their concentration in nanogram per liter or microgram per liter will be there, and that is not removed. So there we apply the photocatalytic water treatment.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it is kind
So
of
there's
polishing
last
step.
question. Yeah. So last question from the chat box is from Vasant Kumar. He wanted to know, in scavenger study, it is used to trap active sites in a reaction. But what will
It is
happen
used to
inside a
trap.
photocatalytic reaction?
Sorry, after the trapping, I could not understand.
Okay. Yeah, he's saying that in scavenger study, it is used to trap an active site in a reaction. But what will happen
Actually,
inside a
not
Yeah.
actually not active site. We actually active species we trap. So what is the next part of the question?
What will happen inside photocatalytic reaction? Explain the correct mechanism and say what is necessity to take this measurement.
See, it is not about, actually, it is about the measurement of the generation of either superoxide radical, electron, hole, or hydroxyl radical. So that we measure by using different scavengers. But there is no role of these scavengers in the photocatalytic reaction, because we are just measuring the mm, reactive species. So reactive species has to go in the photocatalytic degradation process. So I guess it's clear.
Okay, so Vasant, if it's not clear, you can directly interact
You
with
can,
sir.
or you can ask. It's not a problem.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself and ask Vasant if you need more clarity on this.
Okay. So what I need to do now? So all the questions are done.
Yes, sir. Probably they are done. If anyone who want to
So
directly interact can unmute.
so
Yeah.
does Basant want to ask something?
Yeah. If anyone want to ask anything directly to sir.
There
So
are
I
one
need
more
to ask
question
the chat
from
box, right?
Deepak. There are one more question
Yeah,
from
chat
Deepak.
box.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So Harman Kaur is again asking, how can we use photocatalyst for polluted water? Which system would you prefer for purification? Continuous or batch? So she's asking the same question again. So I don't know. Maybe
Actually, as I told her, like it is kind of polishing step. So yeah, again, I mean, again, after in the polishing step also, she want to apply either continuous or batch process, right? Hello.
Miss Harman, you can
yes, sir.
elaborate your question by using the audio feed if you want.
Yeah, because to the
Maybe.
best sir has answered. So if anything else is left, you can directly ask.
Yes, sir. I want to ask that what scheme your material is going to follow. You said that depends on the material and you have to find it out. But how we have to find it out? What experiments we have to do for that? I wanted to ask that.
Okay. Let me explain you by figure. Just a moment. So yeah. Suppose here is the Z scheme heterojunction. Can you see the picture?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So suppose there is so there are many kind of analytical. I mean, you need to apply your logic, like how things are happening. So there are two ways. One thing is that you apply logic, you use certain analytical technique and prove whether it is type 2 or Z. And another thing is that you can also use the electron paramagnetic resonance, and you can measure the movement of electron and holes there. So that is kind of absolute thing you can do. So I am trying to prove here by the analytical technique. So suppose semiconductor A is titanium dioxide and semiconductor B is the graphitic carbon nitride, right?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So the valence band potential of titanium dioxide is around 2.8 electron volt. And for the graphitic carbon nitride, it would be around 1.5 or 1.8, depends on if you have mixed something, I mean, new kind of material. So it would be around 1.5 electron volt. So here you can measure the generation of hydroxyl radical, because the hydroxyl radical, if you go to the table where I have mentioned the different kind of potential of different kind of species, so there like at pH 7, like the hydroxyl radical will be generated at electron volt of 2.4 electron volt. So certainly, if this kind of heterojunction, if hydroxyl radical is produced, so definitely it will be on the semiconductor A, which is titanium dioxide, because the valence band potential is higher than the potential of generation of hydroxyl radical. And suppose the hydroxyl radical is not getting generated, it means the type 2 heterojunction is there, because the hole jumped to the semiconductor B, that is GC3 and 4, and there they are not able to generate the hydroxyl radical. So this is the one method. By analytical technique and applying your logic, you can prove.
Yes, sir.
So is that okay?
Yeah, sir. Thank you.
Welcome.
So thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
so there is one small question like from my side.
Okay. Okay.
I want to ask, have you published any review like on the basis of literature that you have surveyed?
Yeah.
Or the
Based on this topic, actually, this whole presentation is from that review paper, which I have published in the Water Research March issue 2020.
Okay, so I'll go through that because quite interesting work that you're working on.
Yeah, there even more material is there to study, which I have not covered in this presentation.
Okay. That's wonderful, sir. Very informative talk. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so much for inviting me once again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you, sir. I also extend my thanks to Girish sir, who has connected all of us to you. So I thank Girish sir also. So, sir, now to make it memorable, let's have a group photograph. So I request you to
Okay.
kindly stop sharing your screen. Yeah,
So
stop sharing your screen and you can turn on your video. And I also request participants to turn on their video.
so let me. Sorry. So can you see now?
Yeah, you're visible, sir. Perfect.
Oh, okay.
Again, your screen is visible. Could you? Yeah. Wait. There is some problem, I guess. One second, I think. So can you turn off like your
Turn off the.
Yeah, I'm waiting for others to join. Others who can turn on their camera, we're giving a minute. If it's possible, you can turn on.
So how to turn off the screen?
So
Yeah.
this, yeah,
I think it's done
at
now.
the center from top, one.
I think it's
Yeah,
done now.
yeah, it's turned off. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So I am okay, right?
Yeah, you're okay.
yeah, sir. You're visible, sir. You're visible. Yeah, anyone else who's joining us for a photograph?
Thank you, Dr. Ashutosh.
So smile.
It was a very great talk. Okay.
Hi everyone.
Hello. Yeah.
I guess
So I'm taking the photograph.
very few people are interested in photograph.
Yeah, actually, whosoever can, like, who has a good connection
It was a
can
great
connect
talk.
over. Yes, sir. Thank you for connecting us from international Hong Kong. Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, for, participants, for joining us for today's session. So I think, Anupma, we should end this meeting now.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir,
So
for
everything
joining
is
us.
done, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So everything is
Okay.
done, right? We
Yeah,
can
it
do
Yes,
is
this
sir.
great.
meeting.
It is great. It
Oh,
is great.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you once again for inviting
Really,
me.
thank you for joining us today.
For talking with you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. See you
Thank
all
you.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye bye.
See you tomorrow, guys. Bye.
Stay safe. Okay.